Good morning. This is Patrick at Qdabra, and I'm really happy to have you here for our webinar. This is the first webinar we've done in 2 months. We've actually been very, very busy working on new releases, and I'm going to talk about that towards the end of this webinar. This is a 20-minute webinar that we do on Thursday mornings usually. We did about 30 of them last year. We're going to start doing them much more frequently now that we've got our major releases out. The topic for today is externally accessible dashboard security, but it actually, we'll get a bonus demo at the end. We're going to show the latest Forms Designer beta, which we released on Tuesday. Now, if you haven't heard of this dashboards before, I wanted to give you some background first off. Number one, what are dashboards? Why are they important? And some examples, and then we'll show we'll kind of compare and contrast them to the other kinds of dashboards out there today. So right off the bat then, let's just ask ourselves why we want externally accessible dashboards and what security would be required for them, and then I'll show how we implemented the ones we are going to demo today. So first off, let's do the announcements then. Forms Designer released last Tuesday. I'm going to be demoing that towards the end of this webinar. The Forms 6.1 going live this week, hopefully, tonight, and I'll talk a little bit about what's included in the latest release of that. Our Spring Red training is open, the registration of that. We have a few spots left. If you have not registered and you want to get the latest labs on the latest Forms Designer, we're going to do a lot of Forms Designer labs. We're also going to show some really cool techniques with centralizing flow. We have an XML template part that you can add to your forms that will easily upgrade them to allow you to do workflows. So we've got a lot of stuff coming in that spring training class, and if you have been in our training class before, you know what it's all about. We will be doing 4 days. It's about 2 hours a day, so it's pretty low involvement in terms of time, but there's a lot of techniques and new topics that we'll be showing you in that spring training, and that's the end of April. I'll present the link at the end of this webinar. And then we have some upcoming webinars this month that we're going to be doing more with, and I'll give you a list of those, the remaining this month. So first off, why dashboards? Why do we care about dashboards? Well, dashboards allow you to easily show what's active. Think about your email inbox. That's kind of like a dashboard, right? You need to look at what you haven't read. You need to look at what's marked as high priority. So dashboards have these kinds of conditional formatting to show things that you need to look at. Obviously, they're only going to show you what's in your inbox, what you need to act on. But if you're an admin, you want to be able to look at what the forms that everybody's got on their plate. So dashboards are very prevalent. We don't usually talk about dashboards in the same way we talk about lists and libraries, but that's what they are. They're basically collections of active forms that people need to act on. So they all have these things like headers and footers and filters, and you want to present some information to the user about where they're at. Make sure that they identify with the dashboard. Okay, I'm in the right place. You want to also let them know that they've been identified so that they know that they're logged in as themselves. And then you might want to have date range and search box. And I'll show you some dashboards today that have some of these filters on it. And then, of course, footer is important for debugging information and to show who owns the dashboard. Dashboards also have rows, so all of the data in your dashboard will be in a table typically, and then each action item will be a row. And let's just take a quick look at a dashboard. So this is our facilities dashboard here. And this is a customer, Chubb, large insurance company that we did a dashboard for. And you can see that they've got tabs as well. They've got search filtering. They've got the logo. We put our logo on the top. They've got links to open the forms. They've got some nice color filtering. And so this is one example of a dashboard. Let's take a look at another one real quick here. So this is a dashboard that Misty, you're in the meeting. Welcome to our webinar, Misty. You'll be familiar with this. This is a dashboard that we're using to to highlight lots of forms that are sort of central flow dashboards. So it's got different groupings for each form type. And then within each grouping, you can see the table format there. It's got the, each row has the link to open the form. It's got the name of the form, the history, expand, collapse, and the ability to go in and add comments. And I'll come back to this and show this more in a few minutes. So these dashboards then all have columns for typically metadata. You know, what's the status of the form, who's it assigned to, maybe allow you to add comments. We have demoed our support dashboard before. Here's an image of that. That's another one that's got these tabs on it. This is once again a form that is a dashboard. So the Forms Viewer and Forms Designer can be used to create dashboard forms that allow you to interact with the actual forms that you're also going to be hosting in Forms Viewer. And this is something that I know a lot of people have seen us do webinars on dashboards, so it's not anything new. But here's another example of a company dashboard. So once again, this allows you to quickly access, search for the company that you want to find, and then you can click on the link and edit their information. Okay, so those are some examples. So why not lists? Why not use SharePoint lists or libraries? What about Power BI? Well, lists don't scale well. As you know, there used to be a 5,000 line limit, and now that limit has been raised with the modern UI, but they're still not very scalable. They don't scale to thousands of items. It's hard to customize them. I haven't seen, you can customize the modern ones a little bit, but if you're doing color highlighting, or if you just want to change the look and feel of it to brand it, you can't do that with the stock SharePoint stuff. But most importantly, you can't externalize it. So these lists and libraries are only for users that are logged into your tenant, your 365 site or your SharePoint site. Power BI is very popular. We use this all the time. We love Power BI, but you can't parameterize it. So if you want to filter and show only the action items for that user, you can't do that. You can't pass a parameter in. In addition, you can't externalize it, and you have to have, you can put it on a web page, but it's kind of read-only. It's not something that they can then interact with. You can't edit the data. And if you're doing something on a web page and using one license, refresh is like not instantaneous. It's going to take, I think you can do 24 a day, or maybe it's 8 a day, but you can't do a lot of refreshes. And you need to do refreshes to get the latest information. So the benefit today of our Qdabra Forms dashboard ideas here, these examples we're showing, is that it is scalable, it is externalizable, it's customizable. Obviously, you can get instant refresh, and it works with the lists as well as the SQL backend, because the lists, once again, are not going to be a scalable storage for you. So why make it externally accessible? Well, if you have a lot of customers and you want to sort of syndicate it across organizations, but have one central place that you're keeping everything so that you can maintain it, that's a good example. Rather than have separate copies everywhere that you have to edit, having one copy and having it automatically, dynamically, maybe change the logo based on where it's open from is a really good technique. And then you can share it with all of the customer organizations that you're serving. So think about departments, or think about if you have customers, companies with different logos, you can then serve up service requests or whatever it is just for them, filtered based on their needs. And then they don't see the other organization's data. They can access it externally. They don't need a license. They can even access it on their phones. So it's that's the main reason. And the security, though, is really important, because you need to make sure that you only provide access to those customers, those people that you want to see the data. And so we're going to show this authentication technique today that we use. This is a technique that you can add to your form. It only takes a few minutes to integrate it with any form. In fact, let me show it right now. So here's the previous form. Now this dashboard was opened earlier, and it's constantly refreshing. If I open the dashboard, though, from scratch, so if I just take this link here at the top, copy it, and this is an incognito window, as you can see. If I just paste this link in, it doesn't know who I am, right? So I have to authenticate. And what I'll do here is I'll I'll put in my email. Now there's two ways you can do this. You can do it with an email identifier, and then it looks up the person. If the person hasn't signed up, they can sign up and add their email and get a verification code. I've signed up, and so this is there's two ways to enter the code. I can use the app that I'm looking at on my phone right now, or I can actually type in, or I can have it send me a text code. If I type in the right number, then it's going to authenticate me and show me that dashboard. Now let's see another example, a more recent example that we've done. I'm just going to copy this one here as well. Once again, this is incognito, and this is going to do the same thing. It's going to prompt me for who I am, and I've already signed up. If you haven't signed up, you can click here. In fact, you guys can do this right now. You can follow along with me. Now I'll put this in the chat window, and you can click on that link, and you can sign up, put in your email, make sure you put in your phone number, and then it will text you the code. So let's actually, I've already done that here, so I'm going to go back to the link. And once you've done it, then you just type in your last name and the last four of your phone number and log in. And then it prompts you with this. This is a more recent, modern way of doing this, where you just type in the number, and if you type it in wrong, like it's 82, but I'm going to type in 1, it'll say, no, that's wrong, and it will blank it out for me, so I can type it in again. I've only got 3 seconds left, so I'm going to wait until the next cycle. There we go, 72, 254, and then if I get it right, it automatically just logs me into the dashboard. So this is a nice technique, because then you can tell who is logging in, because you've already activated their account. You've allowed them to activate. The link I put in the chat window is available to everyone. So we're not actually gating activations right now, but you would want to do that. You would want to have a process where whenever they activate, maybe you review it and make sure that they're the right people that you want to access. So that's really important. The ability to provide on-demand access is good because it restricts access. Only those people who ask for access are getting access, right? There's no passwords involved, and that means better security, right? And the fact that we're using phones, most of the phones nowadays have the biometric login, either your finger or your face, and the user ID is mapped to that phone. I mean, somebody could steal your SIM card, but that's a lot of work, right? In addition, we're logging every single request. So the Authy, if you use Authy or Twilio, which is what this does, it uses a text messaging or the server-side app. Every single request is audited, or it's recorded, so you can go back and see if there's been an attempt to hack you, and you can see where it came from. Versus typical systems today, where anybody can just try to log in, and if you're not watching the logs, you're not going to see that. So this is a much more secure way of doing things. So once again, the other technique that we're using in this dashboard, which I think is really clever, and is really the main point of this demo today, is that when I click on this link, now the dashboard is constantly refreshing. I don't know if you saw, but when I was in the dashboard, you saw that little refresh there. Every 90 seconds, the dashboard is refreshing. Every 90 seconds, it's regenerating these links. So each of these links, you can see there, it happened again right there. This link can be used to open a child form. And I could just click on it, or I could just paste the link into a new window here. And, well, actually, let me just click on it. I think I must have not copied it correctly. So the benefit here is that you don't need to re-log in. You can just click on the link, and it knows who I am because of that refresh. That refresh is constantly updating the timestamps. Now, if I take this link and I wait 90 seconds, it's going to open and it's going to challenge me again with the authentication. And of course, I can go through this again. The child form has the authentication built in as well. And that's kind of weird that it came up with that number. That's the wrong number. Maybe that was the one I typed in earlier. They need to reset it. And there's a bug in this form. It shouldn't have anything in here. But I can type it in. This is showing that I got a text message. And then you have access to the form, same form. So the benefit there is that because those links are only valid for 90 seconds, if I were to copy this link and send it to you, you'd have to log in and we'd know who you were. And if you didn't have access, you wouldn't be able to do it. So I could actually do that right now. I could copy this link into the chat window just to prove that you cannot access this. Now, what's really interesting, if we look at this link closely, just to show you how we're doing this, is at the very end of this link, we have this verification identifier, and we're actually encoding the user's name and the timestamp. And it's encoding it using a key that is not externally accessible, so it's secure. And it is opening it anonymously. This is the external feature that we did with FormsViewer, but they can't access it unless they log in. And that is the key thing. This gets reset every single time I go back in here. So if I copy this link again, I can do this and just paste it here, you'll see that that link at the end, even though the form ID is the same, it's 65598, the verification has changed. So it's the same at the beginning because it's using my username at the very beginning. But then after that, you can see that it diverges quite a bit. See the last 3 digits LTA versus 16Q, but it's the same doc ID. So that's how we're doing this, and that's how we're able to provide a continuous experience for people without having to relog them in every single time, which is quite a nuisance. So that's a really cool feature, and that's really what I wanted to show you today. Now, in order to do this in the designer today, in the Forms designer, you have to actually set a rule, and so we can actually go in and show you what we're doing. But every single time, the auto refresh will run some logic that updates the timestamp, and then these links automatically include the timestamp in them. And that timestamp, of course, is encoded. It's encrypted, and then it's encoded. So there's some techniques that we use in the rules to do that. There's several different commands that are being executed. In fact, we can actually see the commands if we click on our debug footer here. This may be too much information to show in this view. It may take a while to display it, but it's trying, I think. Let me try the other one. There's a lot of information in this. We're not doing pagination in that dashboard. This one here, you can see that there's the encode. Well, actually, this is, yeah, there's the, so basically every single time it runs the logic, it's actually encoding the timestamp. And that's where that encoding is right there. So we're just using a couple different QRules commands to do that. So these are commands in the rules that fire automatically every single time. You can see at the very bottom there, there's like a set of commands. It gets the form logic information, then it does the encrypting encode. So it's setting the time, and then it's getting the information, the time information, and then it's creating the new timestamp that's used for all the links. So that's how that's happening. So it's pretty simple. It's just, you get the current time, you get the current username, you encrypt it, and then you concatenate it together, you encrypt it and encode it, and then you add that to the end of the command. And then, of course, the child form has to check that when it opens up. So when we check the child form here, let's see if we have a debug here. I think we do. The child form at the very beginning will will have information too. It will try to verify. It's got a lot of information at the beginning. But if we scroll down here and look at the list, you can see that it is decrypting that verification check information there, and it's running some commands to make sure that it's the correct user. Now, this is just showing the QRules commands, but there are some other commands that are being run that will automatically prevent the user from seeing the form if they don't check out. So that's how you do it. Let's quickly go through. We're getting towards the end of this, and I want to show you a demo of Forms Designer. So the benefit here is you can install Forms Viewer. You can actually add the Central Flows dashboard, which you saw there. So we have a stock dashboard that we can give you that includes the Authy, the verification stuff, and then you have to add the same piece to each of your forms that you want to include in your dashboard, because you might want more than one form. So let's quickly shift and talk about Forms Designer. So that's really the topic today, is to show you this technique of encoding this timestamps to allow external access on dashboards without having to log people in on every open. And that's a pretty cool technique. Let's actually switch gears now and show you the latest, greatest Forms beta. So we've actually rebranded Forms Viewer and Forms Designer, and we're calling it Qdabra Forms now. So you'll install this app. We'll send links, information later today with information on where to install the app. And of course, we can help you. If you've got online SharePoint, it's really easy to do this. For on-prem customers, we're going to be scheduling installs for next week or the following. So if you have an online version of or an on-prem version where you've actually installed Forms Viewer yourself, then now it comes with the Qdabra Forms is Forms Viewer and Forms Designer, and you'll get this link. It's just like the Forms Viewer app file. It looks very similar. In fact, it's got the same name still. But when you go into Manage Templates, you can see that I've uploaded the sample form here. So let's upload a new one. I'll just call this sample 2 or something. And we'll put it in the right group. And you can see that we have this design button at the top. Now we have the legacy design, because we've actually shipped some design features before, and this is still going to give you what you would expect. The legacy designer has some features in it that were still interesting. For example, the SharePoint list mapping, and there's the command builder. Those are the two tools that you have here that are kind of interesting, these first two tabs. So we could type in that encode command. We could take a look at how we're doing that, and we could build up a command for our rules, or we could create a mapping from a repeating structure in the form to a table or a list in SharePoint. So these two tabs are still kind of interesting. Even the JSON XML builder is still kind of interesting, but the rest of it is kind of the rest of the stuff is now subsumed or included in the new designer. So this is the new designer, and this is the sample form I've got here. So we're just going to quickly go through this and show you this form. So, obviously you've got the full view editing experience now, which is very different from before. We didn't have that before. Now, this will support very complex forms. In fact, I think here's a more complex one. If I go back to the previous demo and show you, let's see, not this one, but the other one, the facilities one. If we open one of these forms here, like this one right here, because it's constantly refreshing, I don't have to worry about relogging in there. That dashboard is refreshing every 90 seconds. And I can open up this form, and you can see this form is relatively complex. It's got a task pane. In fact, I can go and take a look at, this is for ergonometric data. So it's going to show me some images of how I should be posturing when I'm doing this webinar. So this form is actually in Forms Designer right here, and you can see it right there. I think this is a slightly different view, but there's a lot of different views in this form, and I can switch to the different views. That's all good, right? I can look at the data source. I can look at the rules. So let's actually do that. Let's go back to the simpler form here. Let's add a rule to this. So I'm going to edit my form in the designer, and I'm going to add a text box. So we don't support all the controls yet, but we are going to be soon. The next release of Forms Designer, probably in the next month or so, we'll just be adding more and more features as we go. We've got quite a lot of momentum now, but When you add a control, one of the nice new features here is even though it gives you that kind of look and feel of the Forms Info Path Designer, it does prevent you. It has some guardrails. So one guardrail here is requiring that you actually add the field name. You actually add a field that you name correctly, and I think that just call this demo. I think it will take spaces, but I'm just going to add a demo field here, and then click done, and then it's going to map that to that field. You can see the binding there. So let's add a title here, and let's change the text size, make it look a little bigger. Obviously, you've got undo and redo. You can center things, whatever. And then I'm going to add a rule here. So I can add rules, for example, a rule to generate a GUID. So QRules has a lot of different commands in it, and we can go back to our QRules command builder, and we can say, hey, give me a generate GUID, and we can generate a GUID. Now, you can obviously generate all kinds of GUIDs, and you, depending on which one you want, you get the format. You can copy this to the clipboard. And we're going to be adding this command builder to the Forms Designer as well. But right now, let's see if I'm in the right place here. We're going to just use the legacy one for that. And I'm going to set fields value. So this is a QRules command, so we have to switch the data source to QRules command, and OK. And then we're going to set that value. And then you save your form once you made a change, and then you can actually click open. And it's as easy as that you don't have this complex paging step. So you can see that on load, this form has this one command in, which is the style. But if I type in anything here in this field, it's going to automatically give me that generate GUID command. It's going to set it, and then there's logic to clear it. So the command QRules always clears the command after you set it. So we're not seeing it get set, but you can see the result of that. And that's what we want to achieve, is a rule to fire a QRules command. So that's a really quick demo of Forms Designer using a Forms sample form. Kind of confusing. We've got a new icon here, FD, for Forms Designer, so it's a little bit different color, so you'll know where you're at. And you can see at the top here, it's slightly different from Forms Viewer. A lot of new features coming. Let's just quickly take a look at what's coming here. So, in fact, I think I can go to the release notes and show you what's in the latest Forms Viewer. I hope. Nope, this doesn't have the latest. So I need to update the latest here. Where's the latest? Well, first of all, the Forms Designer's got a ton of stuff in it. It's missing some stuff too, which we're going to be working on this year. But you can see that we've got the view editing. We've done a lot of work on quality assurance to make sure that really complex forms can be loaded and edited. You can switch views. You can change the rules. You can add controls. You can modify their properties. Lots of stuff there. Let's go back to Forms Viewer. I think I have the, well, I'll just talk to it. So there's three major features that we're adding to Forms Viewer 6.1. The first is accessibility. So if you have people that have a hard time reading, they need the screen to speak to them, we've added a lot of support for that so that they can use a screen reader. So the controls actually will have good labels, good screen tips that will be read to them. We've also added better support for contrast, high contrast for people that need to change the contrast. And then the second major feature for Forms Viewer 6.1 is this ability to support the new browser restriction. So Safari is one of the first browsers that's coming out with a policy not to cache any cookies, any third-party tokens, which is what SharePoint requires to allow people to log in. So we have a workaround for this, and that is to have those commands that need authentication to go through the server side. And this includes commands like submitting to SharePoint. So any form that had a submit to SharePoint list in it, where you're mapping data from a repeater to a table, that would not work in this new Safari-based browser restriction unless they went into their settings and said, I'm okay with the token being cached. So we've worked around that now, and that's a pretty major release. We're starting to see several customers hit this with their external users. It's actually not an issue for external users because external users are already going through the server, and that's how we used it for this. But if you have users that have Safari, even Chrome, I think in Europe has this restriction now. So this restriction is going to be coming to Edge too. So we need to get that done. And then we have a bunch of bug fixes and a bunch of cool features that we're adding. Default values, I think, are in this release. So if you were using default values and it wasn't resetting them correctly on open, now they are. So there's a bunch of fixes for that. DBXL 3.4, this is our database accelerator. This is what we use to scale to hundreds of thousands or millions of entries. So this is a SQL database accelerator. So if you have a lot of data, you can move it to SQL and use this accelerator to make your life easy. This is our first accelerator that we built back in 2004. And we have a new release, and it supports email reminders. And we've already installed that in a number of customer sites already. We have our training link here. Obviously, we've got some new webinars coming to you. We're going to be showing you the reminders, the Forms Designer overview, and we've got parallel workflows. So that's pretty much it for now. Evan, great to see your comment there. If anyone else has a question or comment, now is a good time to ask. We are going to be sending out that email, like I said, later today, and we're going to have instructions in there for how you would install the Forms Beta app. So you'll see that coming through if you're a current Forms Viewer user or customer. And I want to thank you all for being here today, and hope you have a great one. We'll get this on YouTube and send you, we've got a couple questions at the end here in the survey, and we'll send you the samples, the sample dashboard and the sample form as well. So yeah, thanks Scott for being here too, and thanks for that comment. Look forward to working with you over the next month or so to get your form situation straightened out. We did talk to Microsoft yesterday, actually Tuesday. Talked to Greg Lindhorst at Microsoft. He's one of our supporters there. He's the head of the Power Platform team. Excuse me, I just tried it. My voice getting scratchy. Just had to take a glass of water here. And Scott was saying that he expects us to see a huge surge in 2023 when the InfoPath stuff stops working. He said 2023. We've heard different numbers. We've heard 2026. We've heard 2025. But he said 2023, which I thought was kind of interesting. So we are ready for the surge. We've got everything going, and look forward to serving you and helping you make your forms even better. Have a great day. Thanks for being here.